To me, it was delightful. Honest to goodness village. There were brick walks that the Village Improvement Society built. Then they had oil lamps on the streets. Nearly everybody in town had half to 1 acre of ground. It was just a delightful atmosphere. I still can't get over it. I still say, I'm going to the village. Everyone in Falls Church used to have a front porch. I would love to just sit on my front porch watching the world go by, or just being still.
Hey, well, we're here on Charles Tinner. Is that the name of the house here? The original person who built this? In one of the older residential neighborhoods in Falls Church, on the first house in that neighborhood. And what is significant, I think, or one of the significant things about this house is the fact that the original family is still living here, which that would be you, Becky.
Yes.
And could you maybe introduce yourself and tell us who you are and how long you've been here and everyone else here maybe?
My name is Becky Stotts, and I've lived here for about 17 years, but I've lived on the hill ever since I was a baby. I moved off about 4 or 5 years, and we moved back to this home, and we purchased it about 5 years ago from my aunt, and my cousin and them.
Who built the house originally?
Charles Tinner did.
And that was your...
My great-grandfather. Yeah. We're like the 4th generation of kids of the Tinners.
And who else is here? Can you help me?
This is my sister Joanne Jackson. This is my husband Sam Stotts.
Yes. So this is kind of the gatehouse for this little community. This is actual Tinner Hill. We're sitting. We're on Tinner Hill, or is that Tinner Hill across the street? Is the whole thing?
The whole thing is Tinner Hill. My great grandfather purchased this land for all of his kids, even across the street, and with hopes that all of his kids would build their own homes on the hill.
And that worked out pretty well.
It worked out very well for us.
It's a beautiful day to be sitting on a porch, and this is a nice wraparound porch with 3 sides. And because it's a cool enough day, we have to be sitting in the sun, but there's a nice opportunity, I guess, on a porch like this to kind of get away from the sun or get towards the sun whenever.
Yeah. On one side you may not get sun, and the other side you will get a lot of the sun.
There's a nice breeze blowing by, and we've got a nice view of the property across the street where the Tinner Hill Festival is going to be on the 3rd, correct?
Correct. And then they're going to build the monument. I mean, not the monument, but the historical site over there later on.
So in fact, we're also pretty much across the street from the monument. So this is a nice little, it's going to end up being a nice little triangle here that you have.
Exactly.
So when was it that your great-grandfather actually built this? So what approximately, what year was that?
In the late 1800s, like 1890s or so.
Was the porch here was this the porch original with the house, or at least in this form?
Some of this form, then we modeled some.
What do you imagine kind of, we're sitting here just having a conversation. I guess that's been going on for over 100 years now. What important people or important conversations have you think have taken place here?
Oh, there's been many conversations taking place. I mean, sometimes you sit here and we've been able to do things that the president couldn't do, sitting on the porch, solve the world and everything. And just sit here, relax, or whatever. Anything can come off, a conversation can come out of this porch.
Yes. We had a lot of them.
Yeah? It's a nice place for it.
Yeah.
The house they're going to build across the street, I guess there's no real photographs of that. Is that true, or they're going to kind of go with people's memories and to rebuild that?
Yeah, they.
Maybe some of those interviews could happen here, and then maybe just kind of sitting over here looking over there might. Probably anybody that remembers that may have been over here as well, and this might be a nice place to sit and think about what it was and what it looked like, and try and bring that form back.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a real interesting.
It is really
process.
interesting. And when we were little, my brothers and me used to. They tore down those houses there, but they were younger then, but they were still there when we were kids anyway. Run down, but they were still there. And my father and my brothers them tore down for Dr. Johnson.
Well, within the community here now, how many of the Charles Tinner's descendants are still here?
Let's see, it's us. My father used to live there. My sister, my aunt, who just died, lived at the bottom of the hill. My cousin lived right next door. The majority of the hill is still family. Yeah. Only about 2 houses is not really family now.
Well, that's certainly unique to this area because it's a pretty transient area. I myself have been here 7 years, and I feel like I've been here a long time. So
really?
You must really feel like you've been here a long time because, in fact, you have. Well, this.
I think another sister-in-law here.
You got it. Walking up the street just as we speak. So you pretty much see people coming and going.
All the time.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when we built one evening from work, she came to visit us before they had their house built. And her and her husband had planned on when they were going to build a house, they were going to build a porch. Well, through the planning, she forgot and eliminated the porch. I guess the process of elimination. She sat on our porch one night and she felt how comfortable it was sitting on the porch. She went back home and says, honey, we got to build us a porch. So now they have a porch on their house now.
That's one of the points of this portion of this series is really just to show how comfortable the porches are and how important they really are to make houses part of the community. And in this case, this is a great spot to really kind of see who's coming and going. And I'm sure you get to really keep track of what all's going on in this little community, as well as you certainly have a view to the rest of the town.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact,
somebody dropping by.
How you doing? Yeah. How are you? I was telling her about your planning of the porch that you had eliminated at first.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, I'm Velma.
Hi, Velma. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, that's what I've been. Stand up.
So, did you sit up here on a nice day like this?
I did. Actually, it was over on the swing. And we had just decided on plans for our house. And we had eliminated the front porch. And it was a nice day, such as this one. I had just finished a hard day of work. And Becky served us lemonade over there on the swing. And I just decided that we had to have a porch. It was just a nice way to end the evening.
Yeah.
The breeze blowing.
Is your porch open onto the street as well, or?
No, it sits back off of the street, but we get a nice view of the woods.
Nice. Yeah, like we were saying, one of the purposes of the show is to kind of just talk about how nice porches are and how important they are to houses in the community, and we're really talking about how unique this area is, and that all the families, it's pretty much the same family that lives here that started out here.
Yeah, it really brings back a lot of memories for me. Growing up as a child, we always had a front porch, and families kind of gathered there on the weekends and after dinner, conversation, jokes, secrets.
Well, today, on a typical day, we're sitting here on a lovely day, just kind of talking. What other ways do you use your porch?
We sit here in the morning, waiting for the school bus for the kids, or maybe for the carpool or the metro bus. And when the school bus comes, the kids go out there and catch the bus and watching while they get on the bus. Or if a carpool comes, then we go and catch the carpool or catch the metro bus, not out to the main highway to catch the metro bus to go to work.
Yeah, it's a great bus stop. It's a great place to wait, and it's a great place to be. And I appreciate you all having me here and letting me share this nice day with you. And again, it's just I'm really taken with the fact that you all are still here and the porch is still here, and it's been real nice being by. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. You come back again.
Okay. Bye-bye.
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 Nearly every street in Falls Church was arched over with trees. You walked under a bower. That's what made Falls Church so attractive.
Well, Barbara, we're here on April 28th, and we are following in the footsteps of Elizabeth Stiles' teachings by walking under the bowers. And today we're under the bowers of a dogwood, and today we're going to be talking about spring blossoms on trees in Falls Church. And we got the dogwood. What do you know about the dogwood?
Well, I know that it's Virginia's state tree, and this, of course, happens to be the white dogwood, which is the basic cultivar. Most of the others have been developed, pink and red and Cherokee Sunset and Cherokee Princess. But the white dogwood is known as a state tree, and it's so widely planted and naturalized in the state that it should be the state tree.
Well, there are many different kinds of dogwoods. You have, there's a number of them around us. And this on April 28th is now past prime. It's got some browning on it. So is this a good time for them to bloom, or is this a little early or
It's
a little
little
late?
early, and those dogwoods are pretty year-round. They have beautiful fruits, red fruits that the birds love in the fall. And the foliage gets a really pretty, dark, it turns red and then sort of a burgundy color, and then drops and then leaves the berries, which is very lovely.
Now, I've seen some pink dogwoods
Yeah.
too. And so those are cultivated also? Those
Yes.
aren't natural? I mean, those
No.
aren't native? Okay.
Those aren't native.
Now, there's a problem with these, was it anthracnose?
Anthracnose, right.
Is that, how do you think this tree's doing?
Well, this tree one has had some pruning done, and it looks like it could use a little bit more, but it seems much more vigorous than it was years ago.
Okay. Do you think it has the anthracnose?
No,
Oh, good.
no.
So,
Usually you'll see a lot of severe dieback that's fairly concentric on the trees, and if they're in a wooded setting, it seems to spread faster
well, if,
because they pass from one to
okay.
another.
So if you plant a dogwood in the sun, you're more likely to have a healthy tree.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
that's interesting. Okay, good. Well, why don't we go look at some other trees? We, you and I went out on April 1st, April
Right.
Fool's Day, because that's when a lot of the trees in Falls Church are in full blossoming. And one we saw was over on Marshall Street. Let's go look at that, and that's the crabapple.
Right.
And what do you think about those flowers? Aren't they?
Oh, they were spectacular. The beautiful red, pink tones all mixed together. It was just lovely, really full and lush.
Yeah, that was one of the most full ones I've ever seen. Now, the trunks were kind of interesting. They have all these trunks.
They're all intertwined.
Those flowers are only out for a very short time.
Yes, and we've had a long sort of rainy season with heavy rains coming in. Of course, that batters the blossoms, and they last even less period of time when they have that much rain.
Well, until you showed that to me, I didn't realize that tree was even there.
Right.
I must have never driven or walked down that road during the few days those blossoms out, because I would have noticed.
Right. Cherry trees are like that too. That's why the tidal basin timing in DC is so particular when they have the parade and such, because they'll only hold up sometimes a week, 10 days, depending on the rainfall and, of course, the weather and frost.
Well, let's look at our cherry. It's right up the street from the crabapple.
Right.
This is quite different than the cherry trees, the Oshima or
Right,
Okami
Yoshima, right.
that you see, the imported cultivars.
Right.
But this is our native Virginia.
Right. They're much more asymmetrical in shape, and they also have a white flower. And the beauty of them is the dark bark and then the white flower. Yoshino cherries are much more understory trees, where the wild cherry tends to grow asymmetrically and usually is in a cluster with other trees.
Yeah, this particular tree, of course, is mixed in with other trees, and it's just looking for sunlight, so it's really very tall and thin trunk, and I love the bark of a cherry.
Yes.
It has a unique, I don't know how to describe
Lenticels that are around this.
Lenticels. Ooh,
Yes.
that's a good word.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that word. Lenticels. Whoa. It sounds like you can eat them,
Yeah.
lenticels. That's great. A lot of people, it grows in almost everybody's yard. If you don't mow your lawn, during
That's
a certain
right.
season for about 2 weeks, all of a sudden you're going to have cherries growing up because they
That's
like
correct.
to. And then people just mow over them, or they think of them as junk trees, but they're one of the prettiest trees, and
Right.
they just grow like a weed around here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go and look at the ones right down the street. Let's look at the redbud right at Tripp's Run.
I love that tree. It's one of my favorites because it's so beautiful. Again, it's one of the perimeter trees in the forest, and usually you'll see them in companion plantings with dogwoods, and they're just lovely together.
So the redbuds generally bloom a little earlier, I guess?
Yes, but often because the dogwood blossom is so much more complex. I have
Okay.
one redbud blossom
yeah.
here, which it's almost pea-like in appearance, and
does
it's
look like
very
a pea,
and it's
yeah.
very close to the twigs on the tree, and it will just be in big clusters, so it almost looks like someone just spray painted or flowered the tree with
Yeah.
with these as you would shake and bake sort of thing.
Well, I've never seen any other trees. I'm sure there are. I've just never seen trees where flowers come out of the bark like that, and they're not at the place where the leaves come out. And
Right.
so it's totally different
Right.
from where the leaves come
Right.
out. And it's just, it almost makes me feel that the leaves aren't going to make it. But all of a sudden, as soon as the buds go, here come the leaves out, and
Right.
and they're beautiful leaves too.
And along with the crepe myrtle tree, I probably get a lot of requests like, is my tree dead? Is my tree dead? Because they don't do anything before these appear. I mean,
Okay.
there's just a little nub that comes out, and then all of a sudden you have a blossom when we have a nice
okay.
warm spell.
I think that was, let's see, the redbud was somebody's favorite tree, like George Washington or somebody. I forget. One of those founding fathers' favorite tree was redbud. I can't
Yeah.
remember which that was. The now this particular redbud is growing right out of the concrete at Tripp's Run. I mean, this is one tough tree.
That's why it's a native.
Yeah, I mean, whew, I couldn't believe it. Now, we have some beautiful ones all around town, and everybody notices the tree all of a sudden around April 1st when these buds come out, and then they kind of forget about them when they turn green. And most people don't know what it's called, but it's, that tree that has a beautiful...
Heart-shaped leaf as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
and it
that's right.
has a beautiful, they have a low canopy, so they're wonderful for sort of like a natural screening. The birds like to sit in them.
Yeah.
They're great trees.
Okay. Well, then if we go back up to TJ in the front, they have something called saucer magnolia. And let's look at these flowers here. These are past prime now.
Right.
And this is, remember, April 1st. And so it's past prime, and they're not looking quite as good. So you got to get these in March.
Right.
And these are quite beautiful.
Yes, but often with saucer magnolias and the stellata magnolia, which is the white flower, the saucers usually are shades of pinks to lavenders and purples even. But they have a problem because their buds get really swollen. We get a nice bit of warm weather, they swell some more, and very often they get frost damage because we'll have a freeze or a
so
frost.
early, sure.
Yeah, so a lot of people get very disappointed, and it's a great year if you can get your star and saucer magnolias to really show and bloom and open up wide. And it's I can't remember the last year that we had the saucer magnolias really full and lush. If we have an early spring, it's usually a time when we have that frost damage.
Okay. A lot of people, when they think of magnolias, they just think of the southern magnolia, the big
The evergreen,
grandifolia,
yes.
But there's so many kinds of magnolias.
Yes.
There's people whose whole lives are based on magnolias.
Yes.
And by the way, there is a newsletter on magnolias. That's all it's about. I saw that once. Let's go to over to Cherry Hill Park and look in the parking lot there at the serviceberry or shadblow. Look at
Great
these.
trees,
Whew.
great trees, wonderful low understory trees, and the beautiful thick white blossoms. And the shadblow was for when the shad would run, and the Indians called it shadblow, but most people nowadays I think call it serviceberry.
That's right.
And it is a native tree to this area.
Well, when they wanted to redo the parking lot and there was a big uproar in town, I think that's one of the big reasons is because those service berries and some other gorgeous trees are right there, and everybody realized it would turn into like a supermarket parking lot.
Right.
And these service berries here are so appreciated by the town.
Yeah,
they have a good fruit on there,
really
don't
stunning.
they?
Yes.
September, is it September or?
They actually will fruit
yeah.
very. That fruit will develop, and then it depends again on the weather.
Okay.
But August, September, and then the birds really appreciate them. You can make a wonderful jelly.
Ooh, oh, yum. Well, let's quickly look at two more of the spring beauties, you might call. One is the Japanese red maple. Now, this is obviously an exotic, but look at these. The flower and the leaf comes out at the same time, which is unusual.
Right, and you have the different sort of tones of the burgundy to the pink, and then the beigey colors. It's very warm and beautiful, and it's stunning against the bright greens that come out in the early spring, the lawns. And so it's a really favorite tree of many homeowners because of the color, and it stays all summer.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, let's close with the hop hornbeam, a tree most people don't know, though. Stria virginiata, a native tree with a rough-barked ironwood, I guess it's called.
And we saw that tree. Where was it?
Oh, that's at Cherry Hill, right next to the
right
Japanese.
Cherry Hill,
right near the police department.
Right.
And these catkins.
Yeah, they were beautiful color mix. They were sort of warm tones. It would be hard to describe.
I never noticed those before. I mean, I saw the catkins. I never looked closely until we went up there.
We're going to have a color alert.
A color alert. Okay. Well, we sure have a lot of wonderful colors in Falls Church in every spring, and every spring is a little bit different, and encourage people to plant more flowering trees, specifically native ones.
Yes. Yes, and they're usually really good price points too when you buy them in the nursery. And to look for really healthy trees that have a nice balanced crown on them, crown being the upper portion of the tree.
Well, we'll continue as Elizabeth Stiles and continue to walk under the bowers.
Well, thank you, David.
Thank you, Barbara.
Uncle George used to take me down to Mankin's Notions and Dry Goods, a corner store at Broad and Washington, where the office building is now. She always had candy, which was something we couldn't have at home. It was a great treat for me to go to Mrs. Mankin's store and have those marvelous penny candies. Uncle George used to carry me down to the store and get them for me. Mother didn't approve, but he did it just the same. I enjoyed it.
Today we're at the CD Cellar, which is at 709 West Broad Street, 709 and 1/2. Well, actually it's 709B, but you'll see.
Hey.
Hi, I'm Mike Diener.
David Schlank.
Hey, Dave, is this your place?
I'm the manager.
All right.
One of the managers here.
You want to tell us the name?
You're in the CD Cellar right now.
And is that because we're downstairs, or is it Cellar with a S or a C?
It is not Cellar with an S. Cellar with a C. C-E-L-L-A-R. The owners came up with that very convenient name after finding the appropriate retail spot.
Great. You want to walk me around? This looks great. Just
sure. Here we've got. This is the Ticketmaster spot where people can come buy tickets. We've been doing this for about 7 or 8 months right now. It's helped out business. We've got the whole blackboard right there with most of the places that actually sell tickets through Ticketmaster.
So for the State Theater also?
State Theater's up there, Patriot Center, 930 Cub, Black Cat, pretty much all the places in the area. Mostly sell used CDs here. And in this room you'll find rock, pop, alternative stuff. You can pretty much tell by the different signs that are there. It's probably about 75-85% used CDs with a smattering of imports and new things that you might not be able to come across with just people trading them in. We've got a small import section over there, trying to sell a little bit of vinyl here and there.
All
but
right.
We've always been the CD seller, so it's kind of hard to get people to do that, to switch their gears. Got dance, electronic music over there, singles. We've got a budget bin here, which is sort of a clearinghouse for things. Everything in here is $1.99, so that usually means
that's great.
Either maybe they're a little too scratched, or just people that aren't quite popular right now, so people can still get a really good bargain there.
But most of your stuff is CD. So when I grew up, and I went to the University of Maryland, I spent a lot of time in a little store called the Record Exchange. So they're probably CD Exchange now, but
probably.
But now vinyl's getting somewhat of a comeback, isn't it?
Yeah, it really has. I have a lot of friends that buy vinyl, and there are independent places around that still carry vinyl because people are still into having that big package to look at.
All that artwork. Now, what's you said most of it is used, so people come in with items that they no longer are interested in.
Exactly. That's where most of our stock comes from. Is people off the street want to get rid of their stuff.
And then you look it over and price it.
Check condition. It all depends on the condition of the CD. We price accordingly to how popular it is, how many we already have in stock. Something like the Beatles we'll always take. People always like the Beatles. Top dollar for something like that. And everything's guaranteed. We do have a small section of stuff that's not in perfect shape, so we buy it for a little less, sell it for a little less.
What's some of the hottest items right now? Do you guys specialize in like a certain area?
No. All across the spectrum. In here, it's mostly pop and rock. In the other room, we've got classical, oldies, country, bluegrass, gospel, contemporary Christian, jazz, everything else. So, I mean, specialty, I guess, would be rock, but we have to know everything about all types of music as well. Right now, anything that's really popular is top 40, stuff that's really big with kids, and then the classics.
Yeah, I see some of these. Got some alternative things.
Yeah.
Patti Smith, Sex Pistols.
All across the board.
And the imports. What percentage is the imports?
Real small, maybe 10% or something like that, because there's still things that are released overseas that you can't get over. You just can't get in your normal shops. So we'll order those special singles, Japanese versions of albums. Cost a little bit more, but it's kind of cool.
Now the people that come in to shop here, this isn't your normal CD store. People seem to tend to take a lot more time looking for items. Is that a true statement?
I think so. I mean, we do have people that know exactly what they want, and they'll come in here just as though they'd go into a tower. But we also have people that really will root through everything that we have and spend anywhere between a half an hour and an hour and a half in here. Because that's the only way you'll find the best stuff, is to come often and spend a good deal of time going through everything.
What is there like an average age of people, or do you have a young group, old group, or
all across the board really? There's a good group of kids that shop here, equal group of people my age and all the way up. And since we sell all types of music, we can sell classical to people in their 60s or 70s, country to their people in 40s and 50s, all across the board.
Have you noticed a change in the business? Has CDs gotten more popular over the years, or it seems like music, when I was growing up, basically everyone bought records, collected records, but today there's so many other things out there, so many other like computers and computer games, and there's so many other activities. Is it still as popular as it was in the early, late 70s, early 80s?
Kids are having an easier way to find out about music. The stations like WHFS play a wider variety of music now. There's on the internet, kids can listen to the radio stations on there, find out about more music. And I think music itself is just more mainstream. There are more ways of people to find out about it. So
now with mentioning HFS, you've got you're opening early tomorrow. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, we'll be open. We'll keep the Ticketmaster hours. There should be a good group of people outside ready to buy tickets for the HF Festival.
So that's great. That's great. This makes it real convenient instead of going downtown or over to
downtown
Tyson's,
or the
people
tower.
can come right here, and it's much more convenient to get the tickets.
Oh, absolutely, and that's real good for our business too. People might decide to stick around and do some shopping too.
Now, I hear that you also sell posters.
Yeah, something we've been doing for a little while now. You can see that most of the walls are adorned with very colorful posters.
And you have a whole nother room.
Got a whole other room with posters in there too.
All right.
We've also started selling DVDs. We've got a small, after you. We've got a little lounge area that's kind of messy right now. We're going to be putting up a new sign, but we've started selling DVDs.
Oh, that's a great sign.
We've got a little area there. People can check out the DVDs before they buy them. All the posters on the walls are mostly for sale. And eventually we'll get something done with this Coca-Cola machine. And
What do you, is CDs, what's the technology going towards? Is CDs still going to be around for a long time? Or
I hope so.
We've gone from vinyl that was around forever to, kind of to, 8-tracks that went out, and then cassettes, and now CDs are real big. What do you foresee coming down the road? Is there any?
Nothing's popped up yet that I'm familiar with. The DVDs were the next technology that we tried to get a hold of. But so far, this seems to be the best format. People thought that one of those little cassettes, little digital.
Oh,
I can't remember those things they're called. Thought that those were going to catch on, but they never really seemed to. And hopefully, this will last us for quite some time.
Yeah, because you don't want to change your name.
Nope.
Now the different age groups go for different music. What's the most popular music right now with the younger group?
Rock. There's the whole heavy metal rap crossover style of music that's pretty popular.
What's your favorite?
When I started working here, I was forced to open my minds to a lot of different kinds of music. So there's still things that I've listened to since I was a little kid, like Black Sabbath, but there's a lot of other groups and artists that I'm actually into these days.
Yeah, you even saw your international items and your reggae music. I mean, you've got an excellent selection. You're located right here on West Broad Street, but it's a little difficult for people to find. Can you kind of give some good directions how to get here?
It's probably, if you're flying down Route 7, yeah, you might miss it, but it's probably one of the easiest places to get to because we're right off of 66. 495 isn't too far down the road, and we're right across the street from the only Burger King in all of Falls Church.
Oh, we all know where Burger King is,
Right,
and we all
across
know
the
with Falls Church Finest that you can't fly down Broad
Exactly.
Street. So we're all going our speed limit.
That's exactly.
So come on down and visit the CD Cellar with a C.
Thank you.
I loved going to the village. Everybody knew everybody. I would say, "Hello, Mrs. Brown," or "Hello, Mr. Hawkshurst," and they would all know me and my kin.
What's that?
Oh, that in itself is very exciting. That is the grandfather clock.
Oh.
It was built in 1810. And my godfather gave it to me as a gift, and I've never had it working. I've had it since the 60s. And I finally took it out to Vienna to the clock shop.
Oh, yeah.
And they kept it a year and a half because it's all wooden works. And he had to hand make all the little wooden spokes. And it's now running.
Did
And
Mr. Donnelly do that? Because he works out there.
Donnie, yeah.
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 Yeah, that's great.
And then
Yeah.
he came.
He lives here in Falls Church.
Did he? Does he?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, well, he brought it here, and he installed it and showed me how to work it.
That's great.
I'm thrilled to death. That sound, I mean,
Oh, yeah, it didn't sound
since
like...
1960, you know,
Yeah.
almost, well, I got it about 5 years after I moved in here, we got the clock. And it's been sitting there all that time on the landing, looking lovely. but no sound. And now
Well,
it
it's a great
ticks.
sound. It doesn't sound like a normal, not normal,
No,
the kind of
I know.
grandfather clock I'm used to
But
hearing.
this is what's wonderful because
that's great.
it's so primitive. And,
Right, yeah. I thought somebody was at the front door, right?
yeah, and I'm absolutely thrilled. I've had it a month now. I have to remember to wind it every morning. Feed the cat and wind the clock.
Well, Midge Wong, you're one of the familiar faces of Falls Church, and you've been so for a few years. And we love familiar faces around here. Okay. And tell us, when did you come to Falls Church?
I believe it was 1963 when we moved in.
Now, who are we?
We were 4 generations of a family, which is kind of neat to be in a house that short period of time and have 4 generations. My grandmother in her 80s, my parents, and then my family, including 2 little boys, 3 and 4 years old, and a pussycat.
Oh, okay. Well, 4.5.
Yes.
Why Falls Church?
We'd been in Arlington for a few years, having come down from New York State, around New York City. And we were looking for a home for the whole family together, and it's not easy to find. Yeah. And we also wanted something historic. We were all history-oriented, the whole family. And we looked, and we looked, and we looked for 5 years. And we drove up and down these streets and showed our realtors, this is the kind of a house we want. And we got a call one night saying, that house you drove by and you liked went on the market today, and you better get out here tonight and look at it.
Now, this house was not in grand condition when you got it, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was being sought by developers who wanted to sort of slap some paint on it and sell it quickly. And it had been, during 1940s, had 4 families living in it and 2 factories in the cellar. And it still sort of looked like that when we bought it.
It wasn't the proverbial glue company, was it? No.
It was foot salve, and we actually found
in the basement. That's good.
We found one of the little tins under the floorboard, so I've got the tin. And also, a young man presented himself from Southern Exterminating Company and asked if he could have the termite contract, and subsequently worked for us till he retired. And he had been here as a young boy, helping to pack those salve tins in the cartons for delivery.
And lived to talk about it.
Yeah,
right.
and came back, so that was kind of neat.
Well, now, this house has quite a history. We're not going to really go into it, but this, how many rooms does this house have?
If you're counting the basement, which we have restored, about 22 rooms.
22 rooms. That's
of varying sizes.
Has to be the most rooms of any house in Falls Church, I think. And also, this is the oldest remaining house in Falls Church, right?
It's one of, certainly, not this section you're sitting in right now, because this is our modern wing from 1870.
1870, right.
Right.
Yeah, this is the new one. It's only 130 years old. Yeah,
it was a farmhouse, and the back part of the house on 2 floors is part of what was the original farmhouse around 1800.
Around 1800.
1810, 1820. We're not sure the exact date. We do have an exact date for this part.
Well, when I lead the history tours for the students at TJ School, 3rd graders, this is our first stop. And I introduce it as the house that has 3 fronts to it.
Right.
So one was from the 1800s house?
That's correct, and that is on this side of the house, in this direction.
West facing, okay.
And it faced toward the Ellerslie Church Road, we understand. Okay. And that door is still there. It goes out into my herb garden now. And then the original front of this house from 1870 is on this wall here.
That's the
It faced Route 7, and the front yard went right down to Route 7, and you have to get up on the 3rd floor balcony now to see Route 7. But that was the original. And then what is now Oak Street was the carriage drive.
Okay.
And we use our side door, which faces on Oak Street.
Right, so that's your front door.
Just because the neighbor home was built so close to the front.
Now, this home originally had 250 acres, 250.
At least, yeah.
Right, so that's a lot. You don't quite have 250 anymore, do you?
I'm down to 1/2 acre.
1/2 acre, okay. It's still big for these days.
It's a lot of work when you're out there working on the yard, yes.
Now, you're a familiar face all over town, but going back to when you first came into town, where were some places in Falls Church you liked to go to then?
I didn't have an awful lot of time in town then because I was teaching school, and I was teaching in Fairfax County, so I left early in the morning, and I had the 2 children.
You were an art history teacher, is that right?
Yes.
Are you an artist also?
Yes.
Great.
I have my master's in printmaking, and I also like textiles and fibers. fine arts, crafts, jewelry. And
You're
things.
suing right now. Suing. You're sewing right now. You're not a lawyer. You're.
No, I'm working on a Victorian outfit,
Okay.
a replica of an 1893 vintage walking suit to wear to an event in Stanton where our Victorian Society is going this weekend, 18 of us,
Whoa.
to see how that city does it. So
Really?
maybe
Well,
bring some things
we're
back.
starting to do it because of you around here. Now, you said back in the, say, 60s, you went to, what, the Good Earth and...
My favorite restaurant in town was the Good Earth, the Chinese restaurant on North Washington, and they were still showing movies.
The Good Earth was?
No, the State Theater
State
right
Theater
up the
was.
street was.
Okay, yeah, right.
We used to
So you go to
take the children there.
dinner and a movie.
Right.
great.
And my children loved Seven Corners. It was in its heyday then. They adored that S&W, so that was their other favorite.
So where can we see you now? It's pretty close to where Good Earth used to be. Where do you go now?
Yes, my favorite spot, the Four Ps.
Yeah, you're there all the
Ireland's
time,
Four Ps.
aren't you?
I am.
Your
Much as
Irish
I can
blood is
possibly
shining,
get
or how
there.
is that? Your Irish blood is, what is that song?
That's my Irish eyes.
Irish eyes. Okay, I never got that right. Okay.
No, to me, that's a wonderful center of town right now.
It's a great gathering place.
It is. Very friendly people, wonderful food, my favorite music.
A lot of familiar faces down there.
Yes,
Almost everybody
yes.
we have on this show, I think, hangs out there.
A devotee. And,
Yeah, are
we
they good?
consider it a meeting spot of the Victorian Society also. They're very good to us.
Now tell me about some of the things. I see you all around town on all these cultural and historical events. Tell me briefly about a couple of events that on a regular basis that you're
Well,
involved
I guess I
with.
have three ties to history in the city with the Village Preservation Society. Our family has always been a member of that. My parents joined when we first moved in,
that's
and
great.
I've been on the board quite a few times.
Yes.
I believe very much in what they do, as you do also.
Yeah.
And I'm on the Historic Commission, which I've enjoyed very much. And then I'm a active member on the board of our Victorian Society at Falls Church. So I have three venues to follow.
Well, tell me, you almost, I don't want to say single-handedly because you'll
I
deny it,
didn't.
but with a few other people really forged this Victorian Society. Tell us about some of the events that you do that people can go to, not the dates, but just generally from year to year.
I think one of the most exciting things we do, inspired a little bit by your music in the homes. We decided that in the Victorian era, they did have music in the homes. They also read aloud good literature of the period, and this was something that happened in the homes, in the living rooms. So we're very fortunate to work with Cherry Hill.
Right.
And Diane and Shirley and everyone that's involved with Cherry Hill have been very cooperative, and that's in our venue. It's the early part of the Victorian era. And we go there 3 or 4 times a year, and we're increasing constantly the number of evenings, and we put on a literary evening. And everybody in the city is invited to come in. The authors are there, different ones each time.
So let me clarify. You have some people in the Victorian Society pretend like they are Charles Dickens.
It's first-person living history.
First-person
but
living
they're all
history.
people who are quite talented as readers,
Right.
and they do a wonderful
So they
job.
dress up and
They're dressed
speak
as
in the
author.
mode.
They speak of the author's life, and they read their favorite works. In the middle of the evening, we then have a reception in the lovely dining room there with Victorian Society members as hosts and hostesses. And remember, we have 22 men that dress in vintage attire, so it's not just a ladies' organization.
That's great. Well,
and we
I've been
serve
to some of
period
those,
food for
and
you.
they're great. It's hard to believe how good that is, how high the level. Now you also have a Victorian ball, don't you?
We have several balls. The one that's definitely always in the city is in the spring, and it commemorates the balloon ascension. And this is
In May sometime, generally.
May, generally, or some years it's been in early June. And this is really neat because this is a Victorian event that belongs to our city. It's our own part of the Civil War. In 1861, the balloon ascension happened right here at Falls Church, and was the first ever aerial reconnaissance. So we have a field day. You'll see me out there on the field during the day.
Do you go up in the balloon?
No, I'm usually doing something in a tent. I don't like heights, but I'm out there in period attire.
Your enthusiasm is so high, you don't need to go up in a balloon,
I don't
right?
need a balloon. But we have an encampment, living history, and then we have a ball that evening. And TJ Elementary School is our venue, and it is beautiful there. It decorates well, and we really encourage everybody in the city to come. You don't have to be in vintage attire. Just come and feel the atmosphere of what it was like here.
Well, thank you, Midge. You're quite a familiar face, and you're a lot of other places too, and we'll come back and talk about that sometime.
Well, thank you. It's been nice to chat with you.
Yeah.
I heard music everywhere in town. A lot of folks had pianos and other instruments in their homes, and I could just walk up and down the street and hear people playing pianos and violins and singing. Some fellows were always sitting on the front steps of the stores down by the crossroads playing harmonica. Of course, there was music at church on Sundays and Wednesdays. A band always played at town picnics. One of my favorite things was dances at the Oddfellows Hall.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in Falls Church City. There really is music everywhere. Dave Eckert, nice to see you. Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Arlington, moved up here when I was about 13 into Falls Church, had bands through high school. I used to play in the music room, in the hall in front of the music room before school for a few months. That happened. That was a lot of fun. Great way to start the school day. Made everybody happy. People dancing at 7:30 in the morning. It was great. And then after high school, I had a couple part-time jobs here and there doing, pumping gas, stuff like that, but I couldn't stay away from playing. I come from a musical family. My dad played sax, my mom plays keyboards, and I just loved to play, and always was playing somewhere.
Our audience doesn't realize just how hard you have to work to be a musician. Tell us about some of the groups you've played with. Who have you performed with?
Well, my first band that I can remember was the Apollos, and we started that with some friends of mine. And I had a homemade cymbal, one snare drum, and it was just three of us, and we'd play little private parties.
How do you make a homemade cymbal?
Well, there used to be potato chip cans about this big, and I won't mention the name. I don't know if they're still in business or not, but I took the lid off, poked holes in it, and put little rivets in it so it would rattle real good. And I made a little homemade stand for it, and that was my cymbal.
And was that with the Apollos?
Yes, that was the beginning of the Apollos.
Did you say you'd seen some of the tapes from the Apollos?
Yes. After I was out of the band, I got fired from the band because I was too fat and I didn't have a good enough set of drums. And this rich kid from down the street, oh yeah, rich kid down the street's grandmother bought him a set of drums, and he got the gig, even though it was my band. And the name Apollo had something to do with the space shot at the time, but also my mom's from Apollo, Pennsylvania, and we just thought it'd be a great name. So anyway, somebody in Jersey's putting out albums about local bands all across the country, and I just live in D.C. or live at D.C., something like that. He sent me a copy, and there's a little paragraph about us and an interview with me and some of the other local bands around town. And I thought that was interesting because I didn't even know anybody knew who the Apollos were.
Who else? Let's go. Who else? Who else were we playing with?
Well, at that time, that was it. But then I started playing in a club down on Route 1 in Woodbridge, and I thought I was doing great. I was working 7 nights a week, making $12 a night, drag racing my car on the weekends, and I was sitting on top of the world. I thought, hey, man, life is great. And our guitar player wrecked his car, and Danny Gatton and Billy Hancock were auditioning drummers, and Billy knew the club owner where I was playing, and they came down to fill in while my guitar player was in the hospital recovering from his accident. And I played with him for a week. Billy said, let this fat guy here play with us for a week, because they were looking for somebody. And they hired me after a week, and I went from hillbilly heaven on Route 1, not knowing a damn thing about what I was doing, to playing with Danny Gatton, one of the world's greatest guitar players. And I was so naive at the time, it didn't scare me. It was quite easy because he played correctly, and I was playing too busy. And he taught me how to play right. He said, you're doing all the right things, but you're playing too much on top of it. And it was actually easier playing with him.
There are educational videos out there now. I'm not sure that when he was around that they really were popular, but they sure sell a lot now. Yeah. Can you show us some styles? I know it's kind of tough, but can you show us some differences in, say, blues or?
Most accomplished musicians feel that if a drummer doesn't know how to play a shuffle, he's pretty much useless, which doesn't go across the board, but that's a pretty fat statement, and it covers a lot of territory. And there's several shuffles. There's Chicago blues shuffles, there's New Orleans shuffles, and there's St. Louis shuffles, you know, and they're all a little bit different. A Chicago shuffle, I don't have any cymbals here to work with, but similar to that, and you do the same thing on the ride cymbal or the hi-hat, the same riff, which is called a tight shuffle. Then there's a swing shuffle where you play a swing beat on the ride cymbal or the hi-hat, which would be like da 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 while you're, and that opens it up a little bit. It's called a swing shuffle. And the other one, like I said, was a tight shuffle. And then there's other blues shuffles that don't require that type of riff. It's just a 2 and 4 on the snare drum, and the bass drum does most of the work. Gives the bottom to everything. The bass drum's more like dum 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 dum, and so on. You're playing triplets on the hi-hat or the snare or the ride cymbal when you're doing that, and that's just a few different shuffles. And there's more than that, but I don't have time to go into all that stuff.
Well, I know I've got some of your CDs in my store. Tell us, are you available? Are you performing with a group now, or what's your status?
I play with a band called Jackson Street.
Right.
It's a rhythm and blues, and it's
Jackson Street, like in Falls Church City.
Yeah, like in Falls Church City, where
Seriously?
Schumann Recording is located, and that's how we got the name. I play with Scott Schumann. He's the lead guitarist and singer and writer for the band. And we play down in St. Louis, and we're basically just getting started, but it's a good nucleus there. We're working on a new CD that sounds real good, and it should be out fairly soon, within a couple months.
It's really great, and we're going to hear about you. That's the neatest part. We're all going to know it. Yeah. What else?
Well, as far as people I've played with and bands, I've played with Les Paul, from Les Paul and Mary Ford, for those old folks that remember.
Are they still living?
Huh? Sorry?
Are they still living?
Mary Ford's dead, but Les is still playing in New York once a week. He's got arthritis real bad, but you owe it to yourself, if you're a guitar player or just a musician that appreciates real talent, to go see him sometime. It's hard to get in. It's sold out every week. But he came to see Danny and us back in the 70s, and he hired me to play drums for him when I wasn't working with Danny, and that was quite an honor. And I also played with, let's see, all kinds of people. We played at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York City for Les Paul's birthday party, where I got a chance to play with Larry Coryell. He sat in with us, and Aerosmith, and Hot Tuna. Danny and I played with Hot Tuna at the Riverfront Church in New York City. Normally they don't use a drummer, but they asked Danny and I to come up and do a show with them, which we did. Jack Cassidy is a bass player with Hot Tuna. Used to be with Jefferson Airplane and Jefferson Starship, and I think he's still back. He went back with Jefferson Starship, and he and Danny went to high school together, and that's how we got that connection. And when Jack left town to go play with this California hippie band called the Jefferson Airplane, and everybody said, "Yeah, go ahead, Jack. We'll see you back here in a couple months." And of course, we all know that didn't happen. He didn't come back. But anyway, yeah, that's.
Well, I've heard people describe music as being a universal language. It's exciting. It's universal because, in fact, every country, every nationality does it. But, like studying any language, it takes a lot of time, a lot of skill. You've been at this for how many years now?
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
That's something. It's wild. It's a pleasure knowing you. It's good to know you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot.
And I've run out of time.
Sometimes I would walk to and from the village along the roads, but I loved to walk the trails and alleys behind houses, through fields and woods. It just seemed more special.
Today we're at one of the lesser known trails of Falls Church, one of the shorter trails, but what I call one of the high-end trails of Falls Church. It's the Jefferson Street connector, sometimes known as the Jefferson Trail. It goes from East Jefferson Street down to 4 Mile Run. This was just built in this past couple of years. There was an easement that was left through here when the Gresham development was started. And in the last couple of years, the city put this trail through. It's, like I say, a high-end trail. Put some very nice stone paths through here. It's the only one I know of in the city. And it's a thin easement that goes through between private residencies down into the public park from Jefferson Street. And it serves as a benefit to all of the people of this end of town. They had used this for years and years before this area was developed, and it was given as for a buffer and an easement. So let's take a walk down the Jefferson Connector Trail. To find this trail, you might want to go to the corner of East Jefferson Street and North Cherry Street, and that's a good place to mark the beginning of this trail, because then we take where North Cherry comes into Jefferson in a T, then you turn left and go up East Jefferson Street. After we turn left on the East Jefferson Street and walk past the first home on the right, between the first and the second home is the Jefferson Connector Trail. As we're walking down the trail, you see that this rock is a very nice rock. It's indigenous, actually not to Falls Church, but just across the river. And the city spared no expense here and did a great job. Now, there's quite a few trees that were planted alongside, along with some native shrubs. We have dogwood here and some summer sweet. And we have a nice, beautiful tree that was preserved here. It's looks like a pin oak, I believe. It's of the red oak family. And it's a gorgeous tree. The leaves are just coming out now in the end of April. And we'll walk under that. If you come back in about another month or two, you won't be able to have any sun get through that. They've done a lot of buffering here with pine and hollies here. They're quite nice on the left. And as we go around the corner now, a lot of nice plantings along here. And you have to watch your footing on this rock, because it's if you're paying too close attention to all the flowers and the shrubs and the trees, you might not step on these rocks correctly. Now, two very interesting trees right here at this bend. The one right in front of us looks like a giant white oak. That's an ancient one. That might be 300 years old. Wow, that's gorgeous. I think that's one of the oldest trees in the city. And as we go down the trail here, we see Mr. Fido to greet you, and hello, very interested in this. Coming around the corner, you're going to see some other evergreens that are still here, and you see a nice meandering path as you look down the trail. You see it looks like a stream going down. And there is a lot of problem with erosion here, and there's some step-offs. But this was designed by Shirley Street on the city staff to look like a stream going down to 4 Mile Run, and she did a great job. You can see there's a sign down there that says no bicycles. This would be quite an unfortunate bike ride, I would say, if somebody tried to do that.
One of the most interesting things to me is that right in the middle of Falls Church, right in the middle of one of the fastest urbanizing areas anywhere, we have magnificent old houses and trees, beautiful music still in homes and on the streets, marvelous places to gather, and trails to return home on. It makes me wonder why these wonderful qualities of village life remain here in Falls Church.